Ladies and gentlemen, happy Wednesday evening and welcome back to the World Championship Series of America. I'm axeltoss, joined by axslav, and this is day 3 of our coverage of the Challenger League. Of course, the Premier League round of 32 just finished up last week. We have our final 16 in place. They're going to be playing live in studio next week. Again, 6 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Thursday. But right now, we're trying to find out who's gonna make their way further on in the Challenger League.
That's right. Of course, the Challenger League starts with a bracket stage. There's 32 players in the first round of the bracket. We've been doing 4 matches every night this week, Monday through Thursday. Of course, on Monday, we saw a couple players face off. We saw Theognis take down Jadong, Major take down Xenocider, Phoenix take down Bales, and Vi defeat Sage.
Lots of a little bit of upsets happening there. Of course, a lot of people thinking, Jadong's going to have the easy victory over the American Terran Theognis, but Theognis saying, no way, Jose, I'm going to take that 2-0. And of course, the other big upset there, I think, was Vibe over Sage, a very close series. Again, if you missed any of it, youtube.com/officialmlgsc2. That brought us to Tuesday, which involved a lot more players. A lot of the Taiwanese, Chinese players that we don't know much about, and they were actually relatively successful. We had the Muslim taking out Maker in a close 2-1, then Illusion taking out Maxed 2-0, and then Ian and Top rounding out the day with respective wins.
That's right, of course, Ian from Taiwan, Top and Maxed from China there. So the international competition doing better on Tuesday than it did on Monday. It brings us to today's lineup. We're going to see starting off Taeja versus Hart, State versus Drunken Boy, then Ghost User versus Huang Xing. Of course, we'll talk about these matchups a little bit more once we get to the show. But tomorrow is the last day of the first round of the Challenger League bracket, and that's going to have Oz versus Jim, Capoch versus Tilia, Hello Kitty versus XY, and Huck versus Neeb.
Yeah, lots of awesome matches coming away, and all very important matches. Again, we start out with a bracket stage in Challenger League, and then it goes to a group stage. So there's going to be 5 players total in a bracket, and you have to get through the other 4, basically, or the other 3. You have to win 3 matches if you start from. It's not that confusing, but the point is you have to win to get back into Premier League, because Premier League is where you want to be. That's where all the money is. That's where all the glory is. And again, the round of 16 starts next week live here in studio. But again, today, our group is we're going to have 3 matches. It's important to note Idra has forfeited his match against Puck, so he will not be playing today. Puck will advance on in the Challenger League, getting that walkover over Idra. But today we're going to see Hart, Taeja, State, Drunken Boy, Ghost User, Huang Xin, and it's a bit of an interesting mix of players here. We have one of the players who came all the way over from, Korea, as far as giving up his Coda spot there to try to make it in the American or the America division of the WCS, and we have some American players dropping down from the Premier League, and State and Ghost User trying to get back up to Premier League, and of course Drunken Boy, one of those relatively unknown American players, making a run through the qualifiers, going to try to extend that success.
That's right. Of course, the first match of the day is going to be Hart versus Taeja.
Yes.
And Hart is the player who was in the Premier League and fell out of his group, of course. Hart, a very talented player for Axiom, but couldn't quite make it happen in his group.
Yeah.
He still is definitely going to be a big threat to Taeja.
His group was Suppy, Ryung, and Hello Kitty. So a lot of people seeing that, hearing those names are like, what? Hart didn't make it out of that group?
He came in 4th even, actually.
Right, so it's like, but these players, they can have bad days, I guess, because Hart is a very good player.
That's right. We can see he's done very well in several MLG events in the past year. Like you mentioned, very successful player, but recently in that group stage, he lost 2-0 to Suppy and 1-2 to Hello Kitty. Mm-hmm. So he's up against Taeja, and Taeja is pretty much a living legend of StarCraft too. I mean, look at those insane results of the last year. He's basically just either won or plays highly in every single event he's gone to.
There's been some whispers about some wrist issues. He had a picture on Twitter of a bunch of needles being stuck into his wrist, which I was terrified when I saw that. But no, he's still very good, obviously, at StarCraft 2, still practicing quite a bit. But we don't really know what kind of form he's in. Taeja, though, extremely good Terran player, extremely methodical Terran player, is very comfortable pushing the games late, very macro-oriented, kind of bursted onto the scene with the Korean weeklies way back in the day, and then Liquid eventually picked him up, and Taeja killing nerds everywhere. We'll have to see how he does against Hart. Of course, the players are in the lobby right now, and I'm just going to ask them if they're ready. We are live, so guys, get on Twitter, get on Facebook, get on Reddit. Of course, if you hashtag WCS on Twitter, your tweet might appear on the screen. So let us know your predictions of the group today. The first match is going to be Hart versus Taeja. Both players are ready. I'm going to hit the start game button.
Let's do it.
Yes.
You were saying Taeja, is really comfortable in the late game. I think that's going to be a big role in this matchup. Hart is more of an early mid-game specialist. Very like to take his opponent apart with great tactics in the mid-game. But in the late game, we saw, especially against Suppy, he kind of started to fall apart a bit, and that's where Taeja's strength is. So if Taeja can drive the game longer, I think it's going to favor him more. But Hart is so dangerous in that mid-game.
All right, guys, here we are, match number 1, day number 3 of the World Championship Series of America Challenger League. In the top left-hand location, we have the red Terran player. From Team Axiom, he is Hart. And his opponent in the bottom right-hand location of Belshir Vestige. The blue Terran player from Team Liquid has a ridiculous amount of experience and results in tournaments all around the world. Trying to get into Premier League, he is Taeja.
So this map is when a lot of people talk about how difficult it is to often defend a 4th base. And TVT is a matchup that I don't think is an exception to this rule, because the 4th base, you're going to get more and more spread apart as you try to take that 4th base. And with Terran drop play, with the fact that all these chokes, if you try to take a 4th base and your opponent can cut off your base by holding a high ground position with siege tanks, all of a sudden that base is going to fall sooner rather than later. Of course, to counteract this, what you do is you build a lot of sensor towers, a lot of missile turrets, and so you never let your opponent get into those key positions before you can get there. Also, the 2 Zell Naga towers are so important on this map in TVT.
You know, Belshir Vestige is such an interesting map because I see it getting used more and more often. I feel like it's like the Cloud Kingdom of Heart of the Swarm so far, where players are very comfortable choosing this map. We're seeing it in pretty much every series, and honestly, based on personal experience, not only watching but also playing this map, I think it's great. I feel like a lot of our viewers are going to be very, very familiar with this map. Very spread out expansions. It's easy taking your natural, but taking your 3rd can be a little bit tricky. So it's interesting to see how these strategies kind of develop, especially based on the playstyle and the matchup. I love your point about securing that 4th base. It can be very difficult indeed. So I'm super interested to see what these two guys are going to open up with as far as, all right, do we go for heavy 1-base aggression? Do we go for a very fast expansion build and rely on the macro and our late game tactics? We have nothing really set in stone as of right now for both these players. Seems fairly similar builds, honestly.
Very, very similar. Hart was a slightly faster gas than his opponent, but it's probably not going to play a huge difference. It's probably pretty much even out as far as openings go. One thing I'm really excited to see for is the direction these players go. I've seen a lot of shifts in TVT. There was a stage when Widowmine drops were basically the build in TVT, but lately it seems like they've lost some popularity in favor of either Hellbat drops or Banshee play, or even just direct, straight-up pushes with Marines and tanks. So there's a lot of options. Both these players have so many tools at their disposal in the early game. We already see a difference with Taeja getting the command center before he starts teching, and Hart going straight for the factory and a 2nd refinery.
Okay, so Hart teching up a little bit faster, definitely wanting to do some early aggression here, adding on his 2nd gas as well, so really committing to this 1-base play. Taeja going for that economic focus. We kind of predicted this a little bit when we were talking about the 2 players' playstyles as far as, all right, Taeja more likely to want to take the game to the mid-game, to the late game, really show his macro, and Hart going for those early to mid-game timings. That's exactly what's happening here, so we'll have to see what Hart can accomplish here, because if he can't get too many worker kills, and he finds himself behind against a player like Taeja, who has a 2nd orbital command on the field and a ridiculous economy, a ridiculous macro to back it up, it's going to be a very difficult situation, so we'll have to see what Hart goes for.
It looks like Hart's going to go for the Banshee play, and what's interesting is he's putting the starport in the back of his base. A lot of players say, you know what, I'll keep all 3 of my buildings together, and yes, if you scan, you'll see everything, you'll know what I'm doing. Yes, if you run in a fly unit, a medevac, or a Reaper or something, gets into my main, you'll see everything very easily. But the advantage is then it's easier to transfer the add-ons around. It's kind of easier just to macro it up from a Terran perspective. Hart said, you know what, I'll waste some time flying the barracks around.
Yep.
But it's okay, because this starport is going to be much, much harder for Taeja to spot. And if I can catch him off guard with Cloak Banshees, all of a sudden that can just win a game automatically sometimes.
Yeah, that's going to be the definite key, what Taeja can find out. Hellion versus Hellion happening here in the middle of the map. 2 versus 2. It's hard to tell who's the edge here. Taeja is going to take one Hellion out of his opponent, so it's 2-1. Units lost, 1-0. So first blood taken there by Taeja. Hart going to back away with these Hellions, and Taeja going to try to get some scouting done. We see a scan going down here from Taeja, and that did not spot the starport.
Just barely
Saw
out
2
of...
gases, though. Didn't see a command center on the high ground.
You know, if he could click on the gases and see how much was mined, it should give away the build. But if he didn't, he might just think, okay, it was he has a command center somewhere that I didn't spot.
There's a scan from Mr. Hart.
That's right. So both players have a decent idea what their opponent's doing. But Taeja, you know, unless he was able to click on that refinery, he's not going to know. Actually, even if he did click on it, he could have assumed that was the first refinery build, not the second. And so he actually is not going to have a perfect idea that cloak is on the way.
Hart has 1 Banshee on the field, extending across the left-hand side of the map. Taeja looks like he wants to get a little bit of aggression done. Hellions and Marines and a Viking approaching the right side. And if this Viking is on the other side of the map, and these Marines as well, I mean, I could see this Banshee doing a decent amount of damage.
Right now, Taeja has 2 scans. If he uses them in mules right now, it's going to be so difficult for him to defend the Banshee. Widowmine takes out a Hellion at the front, but Taeja keeps pushing onward. Can Hart defend this ramp? The Viking and the Marines, that's so much damage output.
There's no bunker on the high ground, and Taeja has to be wondering, okay, what's going on? What are you investing in that I'm, like, exploding into your main base with little to no resistance? Sees the Banshee on the field, so he knows exactly what's going on. Keep in mind, he still has scans saved up. Back in his natural expansion, the Banshee trying to get some damage. There's a scan here from Taeja trying to take down that Banshee, just sneaking away, barely might get taken out. But, you know, Taeja doing a great job getting a lot of kills here.
He is. Hart is so crippled by this push. The question is, how many SCVs are dying back in Taeja's base? The Cloak Banshee, another scan goes down. If he can take out with this scan, he's got to feel much more comfortable, as then he can build missile turrets to defend the next wave. But no, the Banshee gets out of the scan range. It's coming back now. There's no detection, and there's no energy for scan quite yet. Or never mind, natural has a scan. So he should be okay.
There we go. All right, taking the Banshee.
Taking a lot of SCV losses to those Banshees, though.
Now we can take a little bit of a breath. Now that all that's over, so it seems, and we can look at some stuff. So supply is 45-40 right now in favor of Hart. Harvesters 28-23. Workers killed 14-7 in favor of Hart. Relatively even, but I mean, Taeja has that orbital command on the low ground already. He's been mining a little bit. He has those additional mules. But Hart just now planting his orbital on the ground, so he's going to be able to have that additional income. I think we still stand fairly similar here.
It does look very even. I don't know who really has a significant advantage. I mean, the one thing I would say is Hart is building a second and third barracks. So going forward, he'll have a little bit of a production advantage, as Taeja still only has the 1 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport. But Taeja instead is spending his money on the 3rd command center. So he's going to have the economic advantage going forward. Right now, like, everything's even, but 2 to 3 minutes from now, we should see Hart with a little bit of advantage in the Marine count, faster stim, faster combat shield, Taeja with a faster 3rd base.
So pretty bold move here from Taeja. Either Taeja, after that all happened, he's thinking, okay, either A, I have a lead, or B, I think we're even. So I'm just going to drop down a 3rd command center, make sure I extend my advantage. I don't really feel afraid of a potential push from my opponent if he had been ahead. That is, if Hart had been ahead after all that happened. So, you know, as the game goes along, as the game gets later, Taeja is definitely going to be setting himself up nicely. But if Hart tries to come up with some sort of 2-base push, you know, taking advantage of his increased production compared to his opponent, that might be able to work. But in TVT, it's a matchup where it's, those Banshee come in.
And there's no scans.
Oh.
I mean, his mineral lines are protected by the missile turret.
I think that turret might be able to see it. Yeah,
he's got to pull the Banshee out of the missile turret vision.
Whoa.
Just gets it out of range as the Viking missiles are in midair, so it dodges those attacks.
Oh.
And he could continue to delay the command center and barracks production.
But he saw exactly what his opponent was doing.
Exactly. The reason why he didn't hang around and continue to delay the production of those buildings is because he was running out of energy and rather save this Banshee. Is it going to get away, though? Vikings in hot pursuit. Cloak wears off.
Oh, trying to sneak away. Looks like Vikings stutter-stepping a little bit. Marines coming forward.
Oh, they're going to save the Banshee. Marines looking out for their own. The Vikings try to take the corner to cut it off. Marines, turn around.
That's the Banshee's going to get.
It's safe.
Hart sending a Widow Mine across the field. That Widow Mine has 3 kills. Was very instrumental in the early portion of this game.
Oh, I love what he's doing.
Too. What's up?
He's going to burrow that at the 3rd base of Taeja. And that's going to be so annoying for Taeja. I mean, Taeja's going to try to land the command center at some point. It's not going to land. And if a lot of times what Terrans do is they'll drop the mules, and knowing that they're going to land a command center before the mules return. And then if it doesn't land, all the mules are wasted too. They have to run home. And then if he drops all the mules, he won't even have a scan available. And then he'll be even more in trouble. So if he kind of just assumes he can land a command center before it actually gets there, it could be really annoying.
Not a lot of anti here. Not a lot of anti-air, excuse me, here from Hart. Trying to bring those Marines back to deal with the Vikings. The Vikings just getting some scouting done, maybe trying to take out a Banshee or two, but we saw Hart cloaking a Banshee immediately to try to prevent that from happening. Command center being made here on the low ground from Hart. Vikings might land to try to take down that SCV. A bold Viking, the one with the lowest health too, going to take him out, and he's going to die.
I would say a worthy sacrifice, probably. I mean, it slows the expansion by a bit. And now Taeja's trying to take his own third base. Widowmine's revealed when it shoots the medevac and he takes it out.
Yeah.
So it was nice he went and sent the Marines there first. If he doesn't wait until he gets there and maybe doesn't have energy for a scan, that could be a real big problem. Banshee's still trying to be annoying, but has no cloaking energy. He's going to still pick off Marines where it can, though. Oh, no, Banshee! Oh, taking out Vikings, too.
There's lots of units inside those medevacs. Hart actually has a pretty big army here. Of course, when these guys decide to engage... Oh, is he just going to try to drop in the main?
He may be going for the Doom Chop. No missile turrets up quite yet. No. If he can camp the production of Taeja. He's scanning, igniting afterburners. Taeja sees. He's reacting. Is he fast enough?
Siege up. You got to siege up right away. That's exactly what he's going to do. Of course, Taeja is forced to come up into this choke point, but the tank's laying down some nice volleys onto those Marines, trying to kite backwards those Marines. And, of course, the medevac's doing a lot of work here, healing them up. And there's the GG from Taeja Hart. Just going for, just ramping up his production after getting that second base, getting a bunch of units out on the field, and then just going straight into his opponent's main base. Taeja caught completely off guard.
You know, we talked about that. Hart is an exceptional mid-game player with positioning and with finding holes in his opponent. He's had so much success at the MLG events doing this against Protoss players, and in the mid-game finding a hole and just hitting it really hard, getting to perfect position, and having those engagements favor him. And he's showing... Taeja, you have all these, medals, doesn't matter. I'm going to take you out because I will play my game.
Yeah.
I'm going to find a weakness in your mid-game, and I'm going to jump on it. And Taeja, he didn't have perfect vision of his opponent's army, and he didn't have the missile turret defense set up. Of course, it was early enough in the game you don't want to invest in his missile turrets.
Right. But
you do want to always keep track of your opponent's army. That was the Vikings' job.
Right.
And then the Vikings died to Stim Marines, and if they're dead, they can't do their job.
That's very true. That is a good point, unless they become zombie Vikings and come back from the dead. But that doesn't happen in StarCraft.
Nah.
It doesn't. So, Hart taking game number 1 over Taeja. Potential upset on our hands, guys. Stay tuned. Game 2 coming up.